without the power of God behind everything I do, I really am completely inadequate.
I'm helping the culture. These guys are part of us as well. You know, these guys are our cousin. I'm helping the culture. I'm pushing the culture forward in another way.
Hey, black child, be what you can be, learn what you must learn, do what you can do, and tomorrow.
What do you do after you read? What do you do after you know all, right? And you can say that you're truly conscious. How are you putting what you know into action?
Hey, what is up? It is your host, Jasmine Gates, and this is the New Black History Makers show. I am, of course, at the Good News Network. Shout out to the home team. Clearly not by myself. Joined by another show here at the network. Just a Dope Ass Podcast.
Hello, everybody.
Oh,
Hello.
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 Yes.
Hello. Hello.
TJ and DC.
Yes.
Thank y'all for being here.
No problem. No
Is
problem.
the TJ and DC was that a strategic thing? Or
Unless our
you
parents
guys
met
just
up.
have nicknames? That's just your
Unless-
regular nicknames.
Yeah, unless our parents met up and was like, look, when we had these kids, they're going to meet in a couple of years. We're going to keep it a secret.
Right.
So your family calls you TJ?
Mhm.
And then your family calls you DC?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dope. It was meant to be.
Well, does my family call me DC? No.
Okay.
It depends on who you're talking to. You know, every family member gonna have a different. Your grandma's not gonna call you by your initials. It'll be some whatever nick. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm standing
You want
on
to
my...
share your nickname that your grandmother calls you?
I think they go by like age groups.
Mm.
So like my mom's mom, when I was younger, it was Dairy Dude.
Okay.
Nice.
Now it's kind of changed, but it's like she'll say first because I'm the first of her grandchildren.
That's sweet.
So she'll say first.
That's sweet.
My dad's mom, it just
Different stuff.
it depends.
Nice.
It depends. But like this always, since I was a kid, has always been like the end of the conversation. It's like always hugs and kisses. Like that's always, or like when I was young, I liked was it Tiny Toon Adventures?
Nice.
So she would always say, all right, Plucky, go down the hole, or whatever the case is, because that used to be my shit when I was a kid. So
You was messing up toilets?
no, I wasn't messing up the toilets, but it was just funny because I would watch it, you know, when I get home from school or whatever, because I lived for a little while. So, you know, we have things that connect to my childhood that she'll still say now, and like our dismissal of the conversation.
Yeah.
So other than that, as far as the name, it kind of depends on, you know, what the mood is at the moment.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Share some of your
I got two distinct nicknames. My dad's mom, hers was always EOE, her easy on the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just her go-to. Pretty cut and dry. You know, thanks. Nice looking fella. You know, that was always cool. On my mom's side, I would say it might even be like until I was like grown, like anywhere in like the college age, that my actual name started being said, because across the board, the name is Petey. Petey is the name, and my entire life I heard Petey, and you might get like a Petey Weeshaw, and I was like, what is that? I never knew that. And I remember like walking through, I was in school and I was walking through like Walmart, and I was looking at like the DVD section, and they had like this blaxploitation section, and it was Rudy Ray Moore, Petey Weeshaw, the devil's son-in-law. And I was like, why is this my name? And I immediately called my grandmother, and she was like, oh yeah, that was that film. I have no idea how you developed that name. But when I tell you from like various age groups, you'll never hear anything with the T, not T. It is Petey across the board. So that's the name, is Petey.
I don't think, especially my dad's, I don't think anybody uses my name. My uncle is always Big Dog. My dad has been Big Time for a long time.
That's what he calls you.
Mm-hmm. He's called me that since elementary school. So I was like, nobody really
Goes by your
uses
actual
my name. But I think that's like the family thing. I don't think people actually use your name unless it's a serious moment.
That's good.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, how are you guys? Wednesday, but they'll see it on Friday.
Oh.
You could have just said it's Friday.
It's Friday.
It's Friday.
When you have guests that know how to run the boards too.
Yeah, man. That's the only button we know to push.
Oh.
we don't use none of the other ones.
Well, yeah, they haven't like loaded because like to load them up with like what's in my brain.
Absolutely.
I just feel like would like
we'd have to do that every episode.
Yeah, it would just be unnecessary for everybody else.
Yeah, because it would be chaos and people would come in pressing buttons and stuff would be completely different than they remember every week.
That's true.
But how are we doing this week? Mentally, physically, emotionally, financially, nutritionally.
Whatever, I don't know. Whatever area you're doing. Let's go best and worst.
Best and worst. Best, I'm doing pretty good. As I've shared with you guys off air, my ability to move forward in my licensing process has got me in a pretty decent mood. So
yes, shout out.
I've been good.
Never press that
button so much in the show. No money. So, I started studying for that or getting back to studying that yesterday. So that's helping my mental health as far as like kind of getting out of the funk, the minor funk I've been in for the last few years. So that kind of I won't say it put a complete battery in my back, but it's helping me to feel lighter than I've felt. So now I can feel like I'm progressing forward and kind of got to get my cool back.
Yes, I love that. I love that for you.
On the negative, I won't say negative, but the opposite end of the spectrum, I'm still healing my physical injury, so that can be a little bothersome throughout the day. Not as bad as it was, but it's a whole lot better. That, and we still live in California during inflation and all that, so
yeah,
pockets is light.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, yeah, good and bad.
Good and bad.
TJ,
I would say I don't know, bad-ish, the not as good.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I always want more money. I just, like it's inflation, gas is $40.
Yeah.
Chicken sandwiches cost $300. Like, I don't like that part.
No.
Good side, I have a decent and have a job, so that's cool. School is good. Sitting on a fat A in my most current course that should be done today.
And let them know what you're going to school for.
Oh, clinical counseling. It's just big therapy vibes around here. Like everybody, we're all just doling out therapy. It's all a bunch of just therapists. Yeah, so like I guess like in the battery back thing, like I piggyback off him. Like I was like, oh, licensure, cool. It's like, okay, cool. Like let's go and tackle these classes. Like it's good to have like a tangible example. So that's also a good thing because
a tangible example in him, or that's beautiful.
Yeah, like it's cool for me. Like it was, it's cool to like try to keep people. Yeah, I've never necessarily like everybody want to be like Mike, but I very much like I would just like to be like the nigga next door. It just makes it easier for me to go like, oh hey, I'm watching you, friend, and it's like helps me go. I'm very happy to like support my friend, and then you kind of like I can see myself in said journey. I ask this nigga questions every day. Yeah, so there's that, and then I don't know, man. Like I went to the gym, I felt pretty good. I'm feeling good emotionally. I downloaded a video game the other day. Like, yeah, I'm good. I'm a man of simple pleasures. So yeah, I'm doing. I'm good.
I want to touch on that a little bit, because I think, well, I know we've had those conversations, or I've seen you guys post about it, but this notion, because on social media you'll see a lot of Black women more so talk about the circle and having to have the right people around, but I don't necessarily know that we've allowed space, or that Black men often talk about like what you talked about being selective in who's around you. It's kind of like a thing that y'all just do, and the ones that are doing it, and the ones that are not doing it are not doing it. But like, how has that been for y'all? Like having the people, what do you have to say?
Part of me, like 50%, maybe 25, I'd be nice and say 25% of me is pessimistic, saying a lot of people aren't doing it. They're putting on the show that they're doing it. Or a lot of people are connecting and having their circles, but it's based in material and money.
Okay.
So it's like we're all getting money. So we get together and talk about money, but like, do you have a deep rooted connection with one another? Do you actually support one another outside of business matters? Or is it just that like, oh, we all get to brandish the lifestyle together?
Yeah.
What's the difference? So I think a lot of people do it superficially. I think there's probably more people that have connections with one another outside of like the success circles and things of that nature. It just may not look the way that we think it should look, or it may not be as healthy as we know it can or should be. For me, I have different circles depending on what the goal is. I've always been a bit of a like chameleon in certain regards. Like I've never been one person to stay entirely in one circle. Like I'm going to have different circles all around depending on what the benefit is. So I'll say it may not be the topic for this show, but I'm going to share it anyway. So for me, within the last say year and a half, allowing myself to be more social in certain groups has allowed me to be around like-minded individuals when it comes to say relationships and sexual expression and things of that nature. So for me, being somebody that's comfortable with say non-monogamy and polyamory and all that other stuff, oddly enough, just allowing myself to be more comfortable in expressing that and having those conversations, I've built like a mini community of people, or attracted a mini community of people that like, oh, we all see the same way. We all agree with the same things. We're all comfortable with that as well. Not something I sought out. It's just me allowing myself to dive deeper into me. And it started to form in front of me as I did the work for myself. So
that's good. And for you?
I look, you forgot the question.
Well, I mean, you kind of like ushered it in, but the piece about like how are you creating this community or being mindful of your community? And
it's okay, then that makes sense. I can kind of piggyback off what the theme of what he was exploring, even though not even necessarily just in the poly space, like just to be conscious of who I am, what I'm into, whether that's interests, conversations, and then allowing that to kind of, attract like-minded people, or I don't even like to say necessarily like-minded, because I try not to have a bunch of people that just flat out, oh, hey man, I like what you said. Like I search for individuals who like can stimulate my mind, and I'm throwing out an idea. What do you think about it? So I'm like kind of, I want to grow whatever like I'm talking about. So I need somebody who can give me, hey, what do you think about this side? What do you think about this side of this? So kind of allowing myself to, like, I'll post that stuff like on social media. Social media has been good for me as far as, I ain't popping online. Don't follow me.
Follow that man.
But no, follow the pod page. I'm talking about me. But like I'll post some stuff, and like having those conversations, I'm like, oh, I can now talk about my, weird shit, geek shit, philosophical shit that might come off like, you're trying to be Captain Intellect. It's like, nah, man, I just find this weird shit interesting.
Right.
And I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna talk about, boobs for 5 minutes, because that's what I'm into at the moment. Like, so being able to kind of have like, little eclectic groups or whatever helps.
Yeah, and I think even when we talk about like the community that we're a part of right here at the Good News, like I think there's like how you were saying, like the like-minded thing is not always the goal, but it's someone that can at least be respectful of things, and then may have a few things that you kind of agree with. Because I know we don't necessarily exist in the same communities, right? But I know in our community here at the Good News, when you talk about pro-Black stuff, like, oh yeah, we can sit and we can talk. And then even if something were to happen, I know like, oh yeah, these two are gang with helping push this movement or speaking up to something.
Right.
And it may not be that across some of the other boards that are important to me or important to y'all, but I think it's important to appreciate if you can find some realness in at least certain capacities.
Right. Being able,
I
was like being able to connect, even if on like, I don't want to say a surface level, surface is But as your root foundation, you can connect on a similar topic. So pro-blackness, that's the root that we're all connected to, but we all approach it differently. As
Yeah.
long as we have that root connection, you'll be able to have some sort of healthy connection. Because like all of us, we may be pro-black, but we're pro-black in different ways.
Yeah.
Right. So he may be more into geek shit. You may be more into, say, religion. I may be more into whatever the fuck, but this is our core.
Yeah.
And we're going to express this core differently. But at the end of the day, we can come and connect here. We can meet in this space. We can let our differences help each other grow and change and be influenced, or even be a resource. Because I need your help in this, because I want to do this way, and I know you'll help me with that, but I don't know how to approach it this way, and you do. So we can kind of bounce from side to side with one another and kind of grow that net to be bigger. So it's always good, to be able to have that connection. We use Good News as a reference because there's so many different types of personalities and identities and interests and things of that nature here at the Good News. But we all have somewhat of a common ground, not just the station itself and what we're trying to do as far as providing entertainment and things of that nature, but just the fact that we all can connect with a goal of, say, building something that's Black owned or minority owned or whatever you want to call it. So,
for sure, I love that because it's a testament to where we are. So that's dope. If you watch the show, you know that I would kind of take that on a tangent, but the ask to how are you doing, and then the second one is a something that's not as like generic, but so the question that I have for y'all is if you could. I don't know if I asked you guys this last time, but if you could name this part of your life right now, like if it was a movie title, what would you name it?
A movie title?
Yeah.
Or a theme? Because movie title can get wild.
Oh, Lord. Give me the most appropriate.
Okay.
Might have to come back to me.
Okay, what about give me a word, phrase.
Hey, I'll give you a theme all day long.
Okay.
Theme. So my theme, I've shared this before. My theme in my 30s thus far has been freedom. Just allowing myself to be as free as possible in a multitude of different ways. Financial freedom, mental freedom, emotional freedom, physical freedom, even like getting yourself in top peak physical condition so that you aren't held down by whatever ailments that aging is going to bring to you. But just allowing myself to be free of whatever chains I've put on myself for most of my life. So that's been my goal. I don't want to deal with anything that's going to either put a number of restraints on me or it's going to try and box me in.
I would say that it's somewhere between the desire to be free, but I'm associating freedom with happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is just a chase for peace and happiness, and not like a piece of you just sit there and zen. Like I find peace when I'm sitting here talking and exploring thoughts. I find peace when I learn a new bit of information. I find peace when I put up a weight that I couldn't put up before. It's just kind of in the framework of I'm trying to find whatever the best is for me. I want to even pursuing, the school thing and the licensure thing and the therapy thing, part of making that not such I'm trying to do the rat race thing. I'm trying to, I guess, a bit of tearing away things, which kind of is on the flip side of the coin of freedom is me I'm just trying to tear some shit down, just trying to pull some shit apart. I don't really know why I'm so stuck on this. Throw it away. So yeah.
That's good. And I've mentioned it on the show before. Well, this concept, and it's not a concept, but my thought, right? So happiness is not necessarily something that's high on my list of achieving, right? And I've more so been going for peace because I'm you can be angry and still be at peace. You can, and then happiness, I feel like the opposite of happiness is that sad or anger. So that means it's going to come and go. There are going to be moments, of course, in life. We know life is on life where happiness is not going to be your portion for that day. But I can still operate in peace. And people look at me like, what? And I'm it's true. I'm not always happy. Or when I see people that are just always smiling, right? Always just happy. And it's life is just not, it's not that for me. And then it's always interesting too when you see the same people that are like, oh, and then I've been in this deep, dark depression for 3 months. And it's like, but every time I saw you, you were happy. And it's like, were you chasing something that maybe you shouldn't have been chasing, or maybe it should have been something else rather than putting up this like front of.
That's the word. I found my favorite word that I always balance.
Mm,
I just look for like a balanced life.
Right.
yeah.
That's what my focus is, to be balanced across the board. Like you're saying, like searching for like actual happiness is like, because I might feel like I might miss just if I'm taking anger or pain or pissed offness or sadness. Most times that's where you get your best learning in.
Right.
So I don't know if I'm searching. Yeah, I don't know if I want to be happy all the time. I would like to be able to be balanced enough to recognize, oh, this sucks, but it's a good suck.
Right.
Giggity. It's like something that, oh, okay, cool. Like not to get bogged down in it, and then not to be blindly happy because you miss stuff, or you lull yourself to sleep, or you stop. What is the? I don't like grind culture, but like you miss out on trying to. I don't want to go to the next thing if I'm super like, oh, I'm just immensely happy and I don't have any drive or anything like that. So yeah, just being, I'm almost like a slave to balance. So yeah, just a balanced
I mean,
approach and lifestyle. And
I can agree with the importance of balance. I'll add to that and say like the intention is important though, because sometimes, like you said, somebody could be really going through it and they present as happy. What's your intention behind that? Is your intention to mask how you're really feeling so people can't, like, you can't be vulnerable with other people? They can't see through you. Like, this is my shield to protect how I really feel. So I'm acting happy so nobody can poke that tender spot of me that's an issue right now. Or are you like, I'm trying to be happy because I'm trying to be optimistic. I'm trying to willpower myself into a better state of mind as opposed to succumbing to this negativity that's inside me. Having a different intention could play a role in it. Like that, as you were saying it, that made me think of my cousin. So, I mean, you guys know
Yeah.
as far as my cousin's situation is, but he was from birth until death, he was always known for having this big smile. Um, Everybody that was in the room, as we had the memorial and all the other stuff, everybody recalled this big smile. My uncle kind of like, everybody in here knew this as far as him having this big smile, always being happy, always being positive. The people on his job, they came and like they were in tears because he always had like a real positive energy and a real positive smile. He's like, but how many of you knew that he had been hospitalized 4 times? Like, how many of you knew that he was having mental health struggles? Like, how many of you knew these things? These are the things that he was going through in silence or behind closed doors. And he still found a way to smile and be positive and uplift people and support people and try to be authentic and have these intellectual conversations and, be there for people in the midst of him struggling. So him smiling wasn't a mask, but that was just him trying to find positive ways to like push this negativity out of my mind to be able to show that I care about something.
Yeah.
To find a positive purpose in life. He had an intention on, I'm smiling because I care. I'm smiling because I love these things. I'm smiling because I'm having some sort of joy in this moment. I know that I'm going to get attacked mentally and emotionally later on, but I'm not worried about that right now. I'm worried about enjoying this moment for what it is. So it depends. Like, what's your intention?
Yeah.
For your happiness or for your whatever it is that you're trying to seek or express or communicate to the people outside.
And I think the conversation can be towards the person, but it can also go towards the community or us as society or the workplace, right? Like, why do we require people to always come in the way that we want them to come in?
Right.
Like, if someone comes in and they are quiet or they are not smiling or they are going through something, why don't we allow them to process through that, as long as it's not like bringing harm to the space? But I feel like people are so intimidated by like emotions, like, especially as Black people. I'm in more so even with you guys as Black men. Like, God forbid you walk in here or anywhere crying. Like, it's
Right.
like, what? Why are you like, go back out there and turn back around and come back in here like
Right.
with some type of strength on you? But
Right.
we just are intimidated by it.
I think we can get intimidated by both sides of the spectrum. Because it's like, I used to say this example when I was younger. Like me being 6'4", 6'5", whatever, 200, whatever the fuck pounds. If you see me walking down the street cheesing, you're going to be in fear. What's wrong with this big ass nigga that's just walking around cheesing at everybody?
Right.
Like, and that could just be pure joy. But for you, it seems terrifying. Something's wrong with this individual. But also same stature, same person, especially as a black man. If I'm walking down the street just bawling my eyes out, you're also going to be like, what the fuck is wrong with this? Like there's it's the same reaction to the expression of emotion, whether it's positive or negative. So just like you said, you know, especially in the black community, I mean, don't come in here with all that crying and carrying on. Like, go on back outside, get your attitude right. Don't come in here with all that. Like, that's something like your grandma will tell you, don't bring that in the space. It's like, no, I probably should bring that into the space because this may be a safe enough space to get the help that I need. But if nobody's comfortable enough to provide that help, then I have to put the mask on. Essentially, what you're telling me is to go outside and put the mask on to come in here, as opposed to coming in here naked and saying, I need clothing. Like, I need to be covered. I need protection. Same thing should be with happiness. In some spaces within our community, you can go in there and be extra happy. And people, man, calm your ass down. Man, what you so happy about? Like, what got you cheesing and all that caring? You know, it's like, why can't we just support that? Why can't we allow people to express the entire spectrum of emotions without it being put under the microscope or dismissed or judged or some sort of laughter being utilized to downplay what it is?
Right. We're going to go on a break, but we're going to continue this conversation when we get back.
Cool. Oh, commercial break is fancy.
Welcome back. Jasmine Gates here, your host of the New Black History Maker Show with TJ and DC.
Hey.
Hello.
We were in a conversation, but I didn't have you guys do an introduction. Well, the conversation got good, so I just let it flow. But tell us who you are.
TJ and DC.
Okay, a little more.
What information would you like for us to share with the people?
what you guys do and about your show.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff we do that we can't necessarily
Okay.
share on the show.
Appropriate stuff.
It's
that you guys
appropriate
do.
for me.
For me.
Who creates the spectrum
And
of
the show.
appropriate?
Well, you know me and the New Black History Maker show.
Something that's on brand.
It doesn't have to be on brand, but you have
No,
a
it has
show.
to be
You're
on
a
because you say
therapist.
appropriate. You know,
You
appropriate is a spectrum that was created by
We came here.
Eurocentricity.
We came here to knock shit over.
Does it have to be? Does that have to be?
I'm being difficult on purpose.
I know.
I'm not gonna lie. I enjoy watching this every time you do it.
With him?
Yeah, just be difficult for people for no reason. Yeah, I mean,
And it's legit. Like, I'm not lying. It really is based in
But
relevancy.
you know what I
just,
want
like,
you to talk about.
yeah.
I know you want us to.
Do you want to start to be his example?
I mean, he know what to do. I'm not gonna lie. I watch this process so often, and I just be like watching people like roll with it. I am TJ. I am what is my handle on social? The Chat Awesome.
Yeah, you changed it. You had to.
Oh yeah, I got hacked. One half of Just a Dope Ass Podcast, otherwise known as Reinventing. We have like 2-ish shows because we talk about a lot of stuff. Mental healthy stuff. I'm an aspiring or in the process. I'm in school for the whole therapy counselor thing because actually I realized like I never really talk about like my actual whatever. Like I think I realized I've been doing this like mental healthy space thing. I don't know how long we've been like I've been working with like youth.
Mm-hmm.
Have we broken a decade? We've broken a decade. Is it close?
Of friendship?
Of like in this particular space.
Oh.
Or damn near.
As far as working with, I mean, you stayed with youth. I transitioned past.
I mean, in the space period, but yeah, for me, for sure, I've stayed with youth just because they're just like a population that's like
in the space. You close.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've.
2000.
Sorry.
Dang.
I thought my phone was on do. Oh, it is on do not disturb.
But yeah, that's me.
Sorry.
I make content online. I make a lot of inappropriate statements, and then I also talk about like mental health stuff. So somewhere in the middle, I mesh all that together, and boom.
And I wouldn't say that you make inappropriate statements. I think you make appropriate statements for yourself, and it just may happen to be inappropriate to someone else because everybody's spectrum of appropriateness is different.
Okay, yeah, they might not be inappropriate. I think I make I try to like cut the middleman on how I think some of the. That's a whole different conversation.
Wait, I want to hear what that thought was though. You cut the middleman on.
Me personally, I'm in a consistent flux of how to present when I think about how just this mental health thing is just presented in general, and what I've seen across the course of these early parts of my career as I'm learning more about the space, going through different transitions and different positions and stuff, and even in the school thing, and watching how like what you learn in the books and then what works in practice. And like I see a lot of it's popping right now, like everybody knows to follow wellness diva goddess 2022 and they'll post these memes all day, and it all sounds like the tone of what you read sounds like it should be put in like sepia, but that doesn't work when you're having conversations. Like when I'm discussing things with people, when I'm making these interventions, I know how to say this concept as it is written in the book. And I know that doesn't correlate with literally anybody. Oh, I shouldn't say anybody. But if I'm saying like, sprinkle a little bit of, you got to stop, you got to pull your head out your ass and like say that in a way that gets me to this intervention, like that's what works. And that's kind of, this is my own little underlying thing about how I present and how I post content. And it's cool. Like it might, out of 20 people, I'll get like 2 to be like, oh, I see what you did there. And I was like, cool. Like I'm figuring, sometimes I'm not gonna lie, I do hit the gas because I'm way more, I think it's way easier for me to jump out the window and then reel you in with something that makes sense, as opposed to you being the person who builds your whole thing off of we are this and that, and then you like talk about dick and now it doesn't make any sense. Okay. I like the other way.
That's good.
What he said.
All of it.
DC, the other half of just a dope ass podcast that brings you reinventing on the Good News Network.
Bars.
I am also aspiring to be in the space, but I'm in the space, so I'm really just aspiring for that last letter next to my name.
So yeah, I guess we're in the space. We're just leveling up in the space.
Yeah, you guys are definitely in the space, resources, all of that.
Absolutely. So,
Especially you said it's almost been 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, we started probably 2014, 2015. So it's approaching that. I was kind of working with youth and in the space when I was in Ohio, so it's a little bit different. But as far as
I don't really count like the pre. I ain't finna get like all these companies no shouts, but like no. I sometimes don't count those because those were like, you know, you get the little mentoring thing, you get the little
right,
you know, big brother whatever things, but like
wrong, big brother, my bad.
Whichever.
Just like big brother.
Oh, not that. I mean, I guess that. I mean that those interactions that happened in school too. Like that led to we're gonna go to this school and read and interact. So that was like I guess a little appetizer. You get to you come with a file that's this big, and we have to figure out how to make you not set this mug on fire every other hour.
Right.
Now we're in a different space.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm approaching licensure. I will be licensed before the year is over. That's just my.
I better so much on the show. We celebrate Black people.
As you should.
Yeah.
As you should. Just yes.
And you guys came in here real Black. I appreciate that. I mean, I know it probably was not a thing, but you guys.
Oh yeah, we didn't plan it.
It was just
that's probably the norm on a regular basis.
Yeah. I'm in my stuff or.
I gotta say shout out to my mom. Because like my mom's real big. She's one of those people who, like if she figures out your taste, she's good at just like pulling the trigger. So I would say this is a shirt that she bought, but I'm like a big fan of like having extremely bliggity Black stuff and then wearing bliggity Black stuff and maybe not bliggity Black areas, just because I feel like, you know, some are uncomfortable and that's lovely, but it's not just villainy because some be wanting to learn. And then it's teachable moments. Now the ratio of who's scared and who's getting taught is none of my business.
It's actually not even my job.
Yeah, but you know, word to y'all, word to the word to the allies, those guys. Oh, the ones who really are.
Talk about it.
I know the term gets applied to everybody who can do the latest TikTok dance, but I mean the ones who really are the ones.
I mean, it goes back. We talked about the cookout stuff on your show.
The cookout is closed.
So it's like the who they're giving the Black card to now. They've just changed it to you're an ally.
I haven't said that on this show. I want everybody who is in the sound of my voice, whatever time the cookout is closed, don't invite nobody else. The best we can do is I'll hand you a plate outside, but you get back in your car and you go home. Nobody else is getting back. I don't even know.
I feel like the best I can do is post and you can experience from Instagram.
I'm just saying, like, because in my mind, the bar for how you get in the cookout ain't none of them. What's the lady? Is it Jane Elliott?
Yes.
Yeah, the white lady.
That's cookout standard. None of y'all is doing that
at all.
I don't care.
Like inside the house, not even like in the backyard with all of us.
Yeah, see, that's the standard for cookout. I don't care how many times you can shake your hips to the Jersey remix of Candy. That's not getting you in. I don't want to hear that.
Even like with her saying she is the standard, she is an ally that would understand. I don't need to be at the cookout because this isn't for me.
And
I'll help you set it up. I'll help you promote it. I'll help you fund it.
Right.
I'll be a supporter, but I'm going to sit over here and let you guys enjoy yourselves. And you let me know if you need me. I'm going to be over here.
And that's the piece where I'm like, we keep arguing with y'all and like, if you understand it, then you understand that we need a safe space. So, like, even BSU. So, I went to a all-white Lutheran college.
How was that?
It was interesting. I feel like it further made me who I am.
You went to Cal Lutheran?
No, I went to Concordia.
Oh,
in Irvine.
I didn't know that was
because you. That was fun.
So it was interesting, but we started a BSU there. So. Mind you, there was no BSU, and I was there 2016.
Thanks.
So, no BSU. We started there. But why you coming in as a white person to our BSU meeting lets me know that you don't get it. But you're coming in thinking, oh, I'm better than these other white people that support Trump. But it's like, no, you're not allowing me to have my space without you being here.
Right.
You're not a threat to me, but you don't make me feel comfortable.
The fact is you didn't even ask. That lets me know.
Yeah,
Like you
and
could
it's
ask
like-
hey, I want to be a support. What's something that I can do? You tell me.
Right.
You just say, no, I'm going to show up.
Just
and
show up. And it's like,
you're
I don't
doing the
want
same thing
that.
we're talking about. You're being entitled.
Right.
But
And then
my
is
favorite
that
line is I do like to blame us just a tad
Absolutely.
because
Oh,
we
for
set
sure.
because we set the standard that in order to get in the group, you just have to like be cool.
yeah.
You don't have to really do anything. Hey man, she rapping little baby lyrics. She's dope. No, she's not. He can dance real good. He can have a good jump shot. I don't care about none of that shit because none of that really like help us for real. Our I know Paramore just as much as anybody else. Never got me into any of
Nothing.
none of it. I've got no white perks because of that.
Absolutely.
We're so fascinated though when we see other people doing things. Like I've seen it, and I'll be in Black spaces and it'll be one non-Black person in the space, and it's like, oh my God, like we'll gravitate towards it, and it makes me cringe. Like, why are we so amused?
Like you said, the standard, the bar standard is in hell. Like it's so low, it is just
Yeah,
it
just
is
have
in
to,
another
like,
realm.
be able
It's
to walk
not
on
even
2 feet.
That's it. That's really
Don't
all
like
it is.
slick your hair back as a white girl. Then it's like, oh my God, like you just were born in the wrong
All
skin.
the white girls to do is get some sort of braid.
Yeah, and it's like
learn how to have a little bit of rhythm
and
for
put
the
on some Air
TikTok dances.
Forces.
That's it.
And you're
Man,
I
like,
like Young Boy too. It's
Don't let Forrest get to the HBCU and learn how to loosen his shoulders up, boy. It's
a
woo.
wrap. But
Right.
that's my issue, because say for us,
mhm.
because we are so easily amused, we're looking so intently on trying to be included that if somebody just shows an ounce of interest in our culture or
Yeah.
what we do, then we're like, that's still from the white savior mentality for me.
Yeah.
You're looking for so much validation from them that the slightest little crumb gets you excited, but you don't understand the difference between inclusion and pandering.
Right. And sometimes it's insulting, and we're blinded by the fact that like them doing that or feeling like that's how we act or that's what is Black is an insult. Because I
Right.
think we talked about it on your show where I was like, there's so much more to us that you can't even speak to. Like the essence of who we are. It's not just about the braids and being cool. Like the coolness is something that we didn't see that. Like we just have that, you know, like we just embody it. But yeah, we just
I would be supportive if you show up, say a white girl shows up with a braid, but she's able to tell you like, oh no, I understand the correlations between, that hairstyle in African culture, but say my Norwegian Viking culture, we
Yeah.
had this type of hairstyle as well. But maybe that's how certain cultures, like if you can draw the correlation without it being a pandering or disrespectful, cool. Like, oh, you didn't do that with the intent on trying to be like us.
Right.
You're expressing your culture and you understand how they may correlate or piggyback or whatever the case is. I'll take that.
I gotta hear what they said, because sometimes they be trying to use that. My ancestors, and it's like finish
the
it,
entire
though.
statement.
Finish the whole thing. Don't just say that, like, I don't know, man. Christoph the Fourth used to whatever. Explain what Christoph did and where he got his shit from.
Mhm.
If you say that part, then we might could talk. Don't just say that y'all was doing it too. You wasn't doing that. I've been setting the culture since culture been culture.
Where did
Say
y'all-
where it got from.
Where
Say
did you get? Yeah, where'd
Yeah.
you get it from? So that's what I'm saying. If they can understand the correlation, like we learned this from this, that, and the other, blah blah blah. Like when people can express a full thought, as you're saying, that means they can accept the good, bad, and the ugly, as opposed to just like, no, I just want to stick to what looks good. Like, yeah, but what looks good to you is the only thing that you know, and the only thing that you know is a stereotype. So you don't really know anything.
And most times their response is, oh, I have a Black friend, or my grandfather was Black, or I have a Black this. And it's never really an intelligent response to why they are there or them explaining it. It's just like, oh, I have some weird lengthy proximity to Blackness. That's why it's okay for me to
But
operate in this
does that
way.
work both ways? Would be
With
my
us?
rebuttal.
What do you mean?
It's like I have a Black friend, I have a Black person in my family. It's like, but does that work for us? Because
Absolutely
technically,
not.
I've seen pictures of my white ancestors. I've
Mhm.
met my white cousins
Absolutely
by
not.
blood, by family. I know that I have white, but that doesn't make me white. That
Because we
doesn't give
don't
me-
necessarily want, I mean, now there's some Black people that do, and they don't admit it. But us sitting here don't care about the proximity that we have to whiteness. and are not trying to be in white spaces and be like, oh, I'm like you. It's like, no, I'm very different from you.
Right.
And I think we find comfort in like expressing that, like, no, we are not, like you, but they are trying to be like us.
Right. That's the pandering.
And see, I don't like that. If you're gonna accept it, if you're gonna say you got like, I'm such and such, I have a proximity to blackness, then we're gonna set this all on fire. Like, you can't come up to me and be like, oh my God, I'm such and such quarter black, or I'm thick like a black. Like, I remember I had that conversation like years ago, and it was like I was a little, I had a little bit of the devil's water, so I want to, but it was just like a conversation where, and I've said this story before on our show, was like, it was this conversation about a girl saying like she was thick, and she something.
Girl.
Yeah, and it was something in the conversation where she like brought y'all up out of nowhere, and I was like, fuck, bro, like, not gonna lie, man, like,
but she brought who up?
Black women. Like, it was this comparison thing of like, I'm thick like a black girl, and I was like, bro, we were doing so well in this obnoxious, like, lusty space, and then it was such a shitstorm. Like, I had just watched like one of the Hidden Colors. Like, I was filled to the brim with just, it was only two ways this could go. It's like, look, man, it's one of these heads gonna win, and this nigga got to yelling real hard, and I remember having this whole tirade about, you said you were like Italian, right? Yes. I'm like, oh my God, like, like Jersey Shore, Snooki and them. And it was funny. I was like, it's crazy that you didn't say thank you. Thank you for what? I was like, well, like, when y'all was over there, like, eating shit off the ground and shit, there was this group, and they brought with them science and bath water. And I was just shit the bed on that. And I said, if you're not gonna tell me you black like that, if you're not coming in saying thank you, I don't want to hear no shit about like you black and you can dance now. Hey man, if you're not telling everybody in this room thanks for like, civilization, then we can just shut the fuck up with all this.
Do you understand that part of your history though? Because say, for instance, with Italians, and I don't know a ton of Italian people, but they're very proud of Italian culture.
Are. Oh my God.
And I'll call you an eggplant
all day long. But a lot of your culture came from us helping you create civilization. Like, we helped you get out the mud, basically. So yeah, you can say you're like a black person got it out the mud, but a black person helped you get out the mud, literally. You didn't know what that was at first. All that pasta and all that other stuff that's rife in your culture that you're very proud of. You didn't have that before. We helped you we taught you how to farm. You didn't know how to do these things properly. So you can like, oh, we use fresh ingredients in our pasta sauce. Yeah, but you didn't know how to do that before we came and taught you how to cultivate. So how do you, if you're going to share the story, you're going to share your pride, don't call me an eggplant when I helped you plant the eggplant and make sure that it came into a full ripeness.
Yeah, their perception of us is very, it's like I don't want to say it, it's not an appreciation, but they're like amused by us, and then they can't fathom the fact that like we have a rich history, or we have like way more than whatever it is just here. And it's like, it's just weird. So I just like
people don't want to take the film off.
Or really give us credit for who we are as black people.
But they have to know to give us credit. That's the issue. Like, people don't want to address that part. We like to go to a certain part of it. You say, even with going back to Italian culture, I get to bypass the history of America by saying, oh, I'm Italian. My family's Italian. They came here to study and the other, blah, blah, blah. So I can act like we didn't participate in slavery. So our history is completely different. Like, but do you know all your history there? Yeah. Because we're included in that history there as well. And it ain't as pretty as you may think it is.
I think acknowledging our history puts everybody else's in perspective, and everybody else's stands on whatever their culture is, they stand on their history as if they are the ones that created something, that they are the ones that are the epicenters of, okay, like, you think about, everybody knows Plato, Aristotle, Socrates. It's like, these are the greatest philosophers ever. Where did they learn from? Where did they go to school at? Yeah. If you talk about the history in totality, then these greatest minds ever, how are they the greatest minds if they had to learn it from over here? That's the greatest mind over there. Yeah. So you can't talk about it. And that's what I'm like, it's not that y'all don't know. Like, y'all know just as much as I know. And you're not saying it for a real reason. So you can just leave me alone. Because I'm personally, I don't care what you do. I just want you to do it over there.
I mean, that's an encrypted file. you got to do some real searching and hacking to get into that information, because there's so many firewalls and blocks that have been put up to keep us from accessing what's in there. Like, some people know that, other people, they don't really know. And we're gonna stay in the safe zone. We don't want to talk about that over there. We actually tried to literally erase it so we
Yeah.
wouldn't have to address it.
Is that them or is that us?
We have,
Us trying to erase it, or
I think they've
is that
tried
them
to
erase it or us
I
not?
think they've tried to and continue to try
yeah.
to erase it, and I think that we're just so oblivious.
Yeah, see, that'd
sometimes
be
we
my
just
thing. But us, and I want to say this in a very
don't.
but I'm not. I'm gonna say this.
wait,
and I'm gonna,
maybe you should.
this is not a representation of her, so this is a representation of me. I could be my little gripe with us is that you could tell somebody like the day Rihanna got the thought to create Fenty, we could tell somebody could break down 2 Chainz's favorite lyrics and like where he was at in his career. They could tell you the ridges, each ridge in Sukahana's asshole, but you can't tell me the easy just surface topic of, hey man, did you know that these philosophers learned all their stuff in Egypt and like that's in Africa and like they were all bliggity black. So there, take that and just even that tidbit alone, you don't even need to be a super historian to know that. That tidbit is like, hey, this is pretty cool stuff.
And you're saying from black people not
for
being able to
us,
say that.
us not utilizing our resources to do research on important matters. We will utilize every resource and exhaust everything that we can to figure out, who does Megan Thee Stallion's hair and where she gets her weave from and what shade of fingernail polish that she wears. But you won't do that same research to realize that like the stoplight that you stopped at was created by one of our people.
Yeah, see,
like,
and I don't even
you don't know that information and you're not looking for it either, but you'll look for all this mindlessness over here.
Yeah, see, and I don't even like to try to be like, Captain Woke. Some of the BS is funny, it's entertaining. Sometimes we all got life is tough, and sometimes you just need some nonsense, and that's perfectly fine. But when that is like that's all. And then to me, I feel like it's not even just about having knowledge so you can be out here, wearing dashikis in the street. If that's your shit, like that's not, but you don't have to be that deep in it.
For sure.
But my thing is like when you hear all of these other cultures, I'm not even knocking them. When you hear like an Irish person talk about being Irish, it's like I'll kick the world over because I know what comes with being Irish in my perspective. It's really hard for you to ride for whatever the fuck when you only really know about your shit past, I don't know, man. What's that? A couple hundred years ago. It's like, man, we used to get our asses kicked. And then we stopped getting our asses kicked severely. Then we started getting our asses kicked a lot. Then we stopped getting our asses kicked a lot. And now we get our asses kicked sometimes. And that's good. What are you talking about?
Less than 1/4 of the story.
Man,
but you think that it's the entire story, and that's part of the issue for us. Like you said, we in this country specifically, we'll talk about slavery. Okay, so we'll talk about 400 years worth of time, 500 years worth of time.
Right.
What's before that? Using religion, I know, but using religion, you'll utilize.
I didn't do this. I didn't go here.
No, I'm not going to go in a bad way. You use a context or a text of things that is roughly 2,000, 3,000 years old. But for your own history, you only look at 400 years. You don't look past that to see what your connection to this thing is. Like, if you're going to, I can look and pick this religion that's been around for 3,000 years. I'm going to bypass this tells me this amount of information. I don't even know what time period it comes from. I'm just guessing. There's a big old space of blankness that I just don't want to dive into. And then slavery. It's like, you don't want to know all the information from start to finish. You don't even want to know the information that goes beyond your text. Because say, sticking with religion, the text is 3,000 years old, but there's also other religions that have been around longer than that. Say Egyptology, you talk about Egypt and Africa. Egyptology predates Christianity by what, 3,000-4,000 years? You don't want to know that as well. Like, I want to know all these things. That's just the inquisitive mind that I have. I want to learn bits and pieces of as much of this as I can because it's a connection to me. somehow, some way, I'm connected to all these things, but we pick and choose, just like we do in our personal lives, to what's comfortable for us.
Right.
I'm looking for whatever information is going to confirm whatever it is I have in my mind. And if it doesn't confirm or condone what I'm trying to do, I'd rather just let it be blank. And it's like, but that's what sets us back more so than systems.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, we talked about it. You mentioned the systems and stuff, but being a victim of that, and I don't say that in a way to make us feel bad for being the victim. I
Mhm.
say that to wake Black people up. Like, you're willingly letting yourself, your thoughts have already been manipulated, and
Mhm.
you're consciously like allowing what you do now to be affected by that.
Right.
And it's like at some point in time, you need to wake up and realize, no, you only look at yourself through those 400 years because you don't believe that Black people could be more than a slave,
Right.
or you don't believe that Black people can do more than what we've done in this country.
Right.
And it's like, even in the concept, and we're going to go to commercial soon, so we'll continue. But even when you think of the concept of Africa, people talk about Africa like it's a country, and like cannot fathom the depthness of that place.
They talk about it like it's a third world country, like our ancestors are still
Yeah.
living in huts
Like,
and wearing straw skirts and stuff
right.
like that.
So it's, I mean, and that goes into it where it's just like, I don't say that in a way of like, oh, we'll feel bad for us because we're like, no, wake up. Like, wake up and stop being in that mindset. But we're going to go on commercial. We'll continue this conversation when we get back.
Commercial.
Alrighty, we are back. Jasmine Gates, your host, New Black History Maker show at the Good News Network. DC, TJ, we went on we've had a good conversation from your introductions. But yeah, I think that's you guys brought up a lot of good points about Blackness and stuff. And I think we as Black people have to change. And that's essentially what the brand is. The first shirts that I ever put out were, I am a new Black history maker, because I'm like, we don't need to keep talking to everybody else about what we are.
Mhm.
Like, it needs to be from us to us. And if we believe differently about ourselves, and I feel like we could operate differently, and not that people would treat us differently, but we won't care. You were talking offline about Kevin Hart. So if I believe in myself to have a certain level of like power or whatever, why would I care about what the person outside that doesn't even really understand me
Yeah,
feels about me?
I think that's part of our own hang up with ourselves. We spend a lot of time and about trying to convince and trying to create and trying to get everybody to kind of like change their tune. And I make this joke sometimes on the show, but like a big thing in the space is, I'm gonna meet you where you're at. And that doesn't necessarily mean I'm gonna lower myself to your level, because I think some of that is us taking concepts, and it's a lot of pieces to it, but it manipulates us into like putting ourselves into like a docile space. And it's like, a lot of these talks, and how could they? Because they are racist. They did that because they are this type of person. That is it. That's the story. So build around how to deal with someone of this caliber, how to deal with someone of this stature. We spend a lot of time like, let's appeal and let's try to get them to feel like bad about what they did. if somebody out there is a like raging murderer, I'm not going to stop them from murdering by going, "Oh my God, how could you do that?" Because he's gonna go, "Because I like to murder shit. What's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
And so I think we approach things in that manner as opposed to going like, "All right, man, this is what we got. So this might be a situation where you need a hammer. I need y'all to stop coming out here with screwdrivers and coming out here with toothpicks. It's a hammer situation. So if you don't know how to use a hammer, learn and then move forward in that manner." And that's not like a veiled thing of like violence. That's literally like, oh, they don't want us in this space. Create your own space.
Yeah.
Don't like it has to just be different ways to approach these situations because it's kind of like chasing your tail with the way sometimes we handle things.
Right. And people will. I posted something. I forgot what it was. Some older black lady was saying she didn't think that white people were real. I forgot who. Oh my! I'm like mad that I can't remember.
I feel like I've heard that before.
Yeah, but I posted it like this past weekend. But she was like, she didn't think white people were real because they were so rude to her. And I'm like, there's some of us that say that things along those first statements, and people will look at us like we're racist, but won't listen to the reason why. And then you bringing up that issue of bringing a hammer and starting your own situation, people will look at that like, well, why are you excluding them? Because they didn't let me sit over there, or they didn't let my grandparents, and I don't need to go over there to let them to figure out that they won't let me sit there. But people love to look at us and try to put this racist rhetoric on us, or no, you should be inclusive. And it's like, no, why should we be inclusive when history has told us like they are not including us?
Because that's what manipulators do. They're going to find a way to gaslight you. That's really all that is.
Right.
I want to continue to victimize you or hold you in a certain way, or the fact that you are trying to do away with my mistreatment of you. And that offends me and makes me uncomfortable. So I'm going to try to figure out a way to make it seem as if you are in the wrong for that.
Right.
But to go to your point of like you brought up the Kevin Hart thing that he talked about off air earlier.
Yeah.
You can't do certain things if you don't believe in yourself. So for us, when it comes to, we should create these spaces for ourselves. Why don't we though? Because we don't believe in ourselves. Yeah. So we first have to educate ourselves on who we are. So as you were saying, as far as black spaces, the question I had in my mind when we came back from commercial break is like, what is black though? What's black? What is black culture? Mm-hmm. Who defines that? What makes that up? Mm. If we're new black history makers, why do we even have to identify with blackness? Because that's a term that was given to us. Mm. That's something that I've had this conversation with people a lot of different times, and it sits well with some people. It doesn't sit well with others. But black culture is a trauma response. Black culture is not who we are. That's our response to our mistreatment, and we continue to accept that. So even us saying that this is what we do as black people, that's a survival skill that we adopted. That's not who we naturally are. Those are skills we adopted over time because of continued generations of mistreatment. So how do we redefine that? How do we recreate something new to put us in a more empowered space? Yes, we have soul food because we took the scraps and turned it into actual meals. That's a trauma response, but that's not an empowered stance all the time, especially when it's something that like it's killed us.
Soul food is our like operating system. You take everything that we do is in essence soul food. You get scraps and turn it into something that's popular or cultural. I don't know that like I like the concept of what you said about, changing the blackness and not necessarily talking about us from that space. But I kind of feel like that also is like a bit of like rarefied air because we do things like get bogged down in what to call ourselves instead of understanding that the idea of this is to find the space for us to come together and have some community. It's online paragraphs about why being called FBA as opposed to being black, as opposed to being an Israelite. And it's like, bro, you can call yourself a Wookiee for all I care. The idea is that all the people that look like this, hair like that, regulators mount the fuck up and then figure out what the next step is to make tangible change. Like, I don't care really we get so bogged down in like the surface level shit, and it's like, dog, like all the people who, you know, throw their motherfucking shoulder out when the electric slide hit, like all of y'all in this section, what do you do well? Great, you're a good talker, you're a good planner, and then you figure out what the next phase is. We get so bogged down in like all the
nuances. I'll challenge that a little bit, because we do care. And it's not just a surface level thing, that actually goes deeper. Because when we talk about all the people that look like us, we talk about history, we dig into history. That means it's not just us in this country. That means we got Mexicans. They can act like you're not part of us, but y'all part of us too. Not even just slavery terms. Yes, some of us escaped there and have integrated in the culture, but some of us were there prior to that. That means we can talk about South America. That means we can talk about East Asia or the Middle East, which
everywhere.
is but do we include that? That's where, like, say we've had a discussion, you know, all of us have had a discussion as far as like not liking people of color, like the terminology of people of color. But if we dig deep enough into history, all those people of color, they're black like us. They just don't know it and they don't want to accept it. So like, how do you define that? If we get rid of that and say, you know what, we're not going to care about these titles and we're going to find a way to create inclusion, that means we still have to educate ourselves to be able to educate other people. It's like you're discriminating against me because you think that I'm this box that you've been introduced to, but you're me too. I think you should treat me as me, because we family, whether you like it or not. I may be on a different branch, but you're my family.
I definitely agree with, it kind of goes into the whole thing I like to say, like, I'll keep the door open. I will always teach you, but I'm not going to force you to come to class.
Yeah.
So if you are from whatever parts of this chocolatey rainbow, like if you show up to class and you're like, okay, what are you saying? I want to understand. Man, we could talk for the next 17 hours.
Yeah.
Now, if I have the door open and I see you running down the street, then my boy, you're going to keep running that direction, because I have to maintain. I don't care if it's 10. I can, even if, and I guess that starts to turn into the concept of understanding that you're looking for something that might be bigger than yourself. This 10 can eventually produce 100. I just might have to get jiggy with the idea that I'm not going to see the fruits of this labor.
Right.
I need to plant. If I only got 10, I'm going to plant in the 10. But I'm not going to, I feel like the time that we waste trying to get 10,000, you just focus on your 10. And your 10 will eventually become whatever it needs to be. If your idea is to do the nation, the this, the that, then I'm going to pour really hard into this here. And then.
So what if people do that, but their 10 is the Israelites or the Nation of Islam or the this or the that? What if that's people pouring into their 10?
Like the getting, or them doing their part, basically?
Yeah, we can all do our part. We all can have a different approach. Like you said earlier, we all can have the core of being pro-black, but how we approach it is different.
Yeah.
So
I think those groups are fine. I think what in my understanding of, I feel like the only issue with some of these groups is we still fall into the frame of mind of going, I think about it like we started at the beginning. Everything here is built on black.
Right.
It's whatever the fuck, it's religion, it's geek nigga shit. But the idea that geek nigga shit is not the only avenue. We all know how there's 50 ways to get to the city. If you take the 10, I take the 60, you take the streets. As long as we get to the city, that's all that matters. So I need to not be mad at you because you took this freeway.
Right.
I don't care how you get there as long as you get there.
Yeah.
So Israelite, Muslim, dude who break dances on the street, like, as long as I'm not shitting on you for being okay, you got there, cool. You bring all y'all's and y'all get there the way y'all get there, and we meet here. The goal is bliggity black shit. It's like, you know, what was that? What was the movie like The Warriors? Can you dig it? Like, it's 50,000 different colors and whatever here, but the goal is, that nigga said at the start, we are XYZ thousand strong. I don't care what you wearing. I don't care how you, but you're here, and this is the goal. And that should be the method of whatever group. I don't care what your group does.
Yeah.
I swear I don't give a shit.
And I mentioned it on your show too, that this aspect of like war. So that is also something that I've had to understand, you know, in the black space. I mean, I guess it's all black, but then also in another capacity of, okay, having different beliefs and understanding that in the space that I'm in, there's still work that needs to be done to help push black people forward.
Mm-hmm.
And then in your spaces, I'm sure as well, or maybe I mean, whatever it may be, but there's still work that needs to be done. Like, I can't feel like everybody needs to be in this space, because if we're all here and we're all like-minded, then who's facilitating or who's pushing forward in these other spaces? So I think that's another, just important thing as we it's all about just allowing people to exist in their space. And if you're not a coon, right, if you're not bringing some type of negative thing to Black people, you're not, hurting who we are, then it's like, okay, cool, do your thing. Do your thing. And then I hope, what do you do well? Hopefully you're bringing that to the space, and then also bringing more power to Black people, or bringing more power to the people that you're, in a group with. But I think.
So how would you utilize the strengths of people that we would deem, say, a coon?
How would you utilize it?
Because at the end of the day, whether we label them based on a stereotype or a mindset or an approach or whatever, if we deem them a coon, that doesn't mean that they're not a part of our community and they don't have something to contribute. So how do we get them to, although you identify with this and I'll let you hold space for whatever you want, that's fine, but we still need your resource for the community, and even if we got to trick you into doing it, how can we get you to utilize
is everybody
your talents?
needed?
Is anybody needed?
Yeah, people are needed. You can't push something without people.
So what are we pushing? Like we said, for the common goal, my question was, what's the goal when it comes to us, melanated individuals? No
well, I
what you
think
identify as, what's our goal?
Of course, that's a loaded question, but I'm not saying that not everybody is needed, because at the end of the day, I would hope that if there is a coon in this space, right, even less with us, right, with TGN, a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different people, right, but if there was somebody that is like a coon and they were in this space with all the people that are part of the group, it would either be you gonna learn, but we ain't about to sit up here and let you act a fool in here. Like, you ain't about to sit up here and just wild out and make us look crazy. So I think sometimes it's like, you could cut people off. Some people just don't need to be around. I would hope that we could educate them, because I don't want a Black person loosely going out into the world with that coon mindset. I think that's dangerous, especially when they're not around Black people and they get in these non-Black spaces and they act that way.
So that means we have to keep them close.
Yeah, it's like, that's why I'm like, it's like, I don't need you, but you need me.
I find coon to be in direct opposition of whatever we're trying to do. And I'm not opposed to going it sounds, it's the fantasy is that all your enemies look like the enemy. If you're a coon, to me, you're in direct opposition to what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
I don't need you in the space, because whatever you say and whatever you do is not in representation of me and what we're trying to get down with. So go to that space, because that is where you need to be, and you can't really help here, because the resources that you use, I feel like, from a coon have a coon influence. So we might use, if you are some type of gajillionaire and we use your resources, you have power over your own resources. So I have a ceiling here. And for what what seems like everybody be trying to do when they talk about the pro-Black shit, that ceiling needs to be gone. So as much as it is very attractive and shiny, I need you gone too.
So is cooning, shucking and jiving, tap dancing for the man, all the things that we attribute to coon is that are anti building up our community in some aspect.
Yeah, detriment.
Is that a conscious decision, or is that a mental illness?
Ooh, it's a mental illness to me. And sometimes it's conscious. I mean, because I won't go and just label it like a mental illness, but I don't understand how you could be a detriment to who you are and the people that look like you, and willingly go into it. So I think it could be both, because you have this self-hate thing. And I think self-hate is much more than you just not liking yourself. Like, it's a lot going on up here that you have to deal with. And a lot of that, the self-hate thing leads to cooning in some spaces for a lot of people.
So I'm setting all this up for a particular purpose.
Okay.
But in that regard, we say that we'll ostracize them, because you cooning, you anti us, you don't really understand how you're doing us. Even when mental illness or not is detrimental to this space.
Yeah.
But we have people in our community that don't identify as coons that do the same thing. So niggas and coons, those are our two extremes on the spectrum. We're somewhere in the middle. We'll ostracize coon, but we'll still try to save niggas. Why don't we try to save the coons as well? Why don't we have that same energy? Because the mentality is the same. You're doing something or adopting a certain narrative that is detrimental to our community. But we're willing to work with you, but we're not willing to work with you. Why not? Why don't we try to work with both or work with neither?
And I'll push back, not push back, but just for connotation, because I know I've had conversations with people in the word nigga. I know we understand that, but even with me, like, and we use it in a positive thing. So the people, the Black people that are like killing or that are just acting ignorantly, because I think sometimes when we think of coon, we think of like maybe a Black man that's in a corporate space that's with white men that's like tripping, you know, and we don't necessarily think of the dude on the corner that is shooting up other Black people. So I think that's a good point.
We have more niggas than we do coons.
Think so?
Absolutely. We got way more niggas than we do coons.
I think the desire to potentially save a nigga over a coon is niggas, I think, are looked at as misguided. Are only working with the tools that you like. Cooning seems like an active choice. Like when I look at I don't know, man, what's old boy? I know we make a lot of jokes, but like Herschel Walker getting up on stage and like actively saying things is like you're making a lot of like active choices to say goofy shit as opposed to in my own, even if I'm using my own interactions like with the niggas. If a nigga like, you know, nigga respects you, you might have different whatevers. It's like you can drop a smidgen of knowledge to the level that they can comprehend or like just the level that they're ready for. And it's like, I see your point. Like it stems from a space of ignorance as opposed of a conscious decision. As like you said, it might be self-hate. It might be just, I don't value or whatever the experience is. It seems the cooning thing seems like more a conscious decision. Like I know what it is over there and I actively don't want that. I'm in direct opposition to y'all. Whereas niggas is like, I only really have like this level of perspective. And it seems like I feel like the idea is that it feels like there's more of an opportunity for you to open the door for this person because their real issue is that they only know this much.
Right.
Where Coon seems like, nigga, you know there's this much and you know there's this over here. You just don't fuck with that over there for whatever your reason is.
Right.
And I feel like it's more work, even if it's more work to undo the cooning as opposed to pouring into the nigga, if that makes sense.
And cooning as a trauma response? Because I know that when we talk about like these niggas, we look at that as like, okay, a trauma response or a response to their environment.
Right.
So when you're looking at cooning, it's like, okay, what are you responding to?
To me, it's the same thing.
The same thing.
Because for me, so the big tie-in is like the major issue in our community, especially say in America, conditioning. I say it's a mental illness on both sides because certain things are conditioning you to respond a certain way that's not really you. You're responding based on your traumas. If I grew up in the suburbs and I'm around white people, and for me, this is a traumatic experience, the only way I can save myself is to turn into a Carlton and to be anti-Black everything because I don't know what my real culture is, but I also know that trying to figure that out is not safe for me.
Right.
So I'm cooning out of safety and that becomes my personality, but it's an unconscious decision. It's a mental illness. It's not really who I am. This is my trauma response. The same thing for niggas over here. They both got self-hate. I hate myself in that I'm not trying to identify with Black people based on a stereotype. I hate myself, but I'm also trying to identify more with the stereotype that was based in assimilation. Just because I wear, say, polo shirts and cargo shorts or whatever the case over here in Sperry's, and I like, celebrating 4th of July and all that over here and letting my white friends use the N-word when they sing rap songs. That's no different than the person over here that I can't wear my natural hair. It's ugly. I'm going to put this wig or this weave in. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. All these things that we know that were created originally to make you look more white, make you look more acceptable, make you look more presentable. It's the same thing to me.
Because I still can't tolerate Not that I can't. Well, one is more tolerable, I think, for me.
Right.
You know, because I have an issue with Black women that cannot wear their hair. You know, and not an issue, but like I'm concerned
Right.
about the fact that you don't like that, or the fact that you cannot come out without a weave in or a wig on or something like that. So I think one for me is just more tolerable than
So
the other.
there's a bias.
Mm.
So we approach our own people with a bias,
Mhm.
but the mental illness is still the same. And in order for our community to get better, we have to be willing to address the mental health issues in our community. When we talk about mental health, we may talk about schizophrenia, bipolar,
Yeah.
things of that nature, but we don't talk about the conditioning that is a mental health issue. We have a bias towards being okay with this, but not being okay with this, but they're the same thing. As we talked about different ways of doing things, but this is the root. The root is the same for these two individuals. It just looks different. So why do we have a bias against one and towards another when we need to help both or ostracize both? Which one you gonna pick?
Man, if I had to pick, it sounds
Both hard.
I mean, it sounds bad to ostracize both, but the idea of trying to turn a coon, I feel like I don't want to say wasted effort, but I just like in my mind they present as like the weave and the all of those that comes with that type of culture still feels like in some form or fashion they're ingrained in maybe not the worst parts of our culture, but there's a attachment to what it looks like to be Black. That to me sounds more of like you don't know anything about what we really are, and I can show you that, and I can nurture the seed because you think Blackness is just this. I can show you that, oh, we're this, we're that. The other side has attached to it this idea that it needs to just be in opposition to us. Like it feels like an enemy thing. So I'm like, I don't know how to. I'm doing a lot of, I have to undo and unmake a lot of things. And it's like, I don't know. I'm not opposed. I can't say I'm 100% opposed to it, but I find that to be like, I might want to cut y'all off because I don't know, man. Yeah. I feel like it's much easier for me to grab the field nigga and maybe work through that fear as opposed to the house nigga that's going to snitch on me. You got to go burn with the house, bro.
Now here's the tricky part. Because you're saying like it takes a lot of work to undo this over here as opposed to reintroducing or informing over here. For us, that's our job every day, to take something and deconstruct and reconstruct it. The thing that we say is too much work to do for coons. That's what we're choosing to do as our profession for everybody that comes sits in a chair across from us. So why is it okay for us to choose that profession? And that's not too laborious, but for our own people in our community, that's too laborious. Why is it okay we can say that the cookout is closed because we let in all these white people that typically have the same mindset as the niggas because they're both attaching to a stereotype. It's okay to let them in, but it's not okay to let this person in that technically should be here but doesn't understand why they need to be over here. It's the same amount of effort in every direction, in my opinion.
I think.
See, I don't know if it's this. Oh, my bad.
I was thinking when you talk about like the weaves or whatever it may be on the opposite end for Black men or whatever, that's more of a building thing that you have to do. You can build somebody up to believe in themselves. But when you're talking about coons, that's more of a tearing down. Like you have to dismantle a lot of those thoughts. And I feel like for coons, a lot of their mindsets, like they're very strong in thought. Like it's not just you don't just see a coon walking around and it's like, oh, I just don't like Black people and y'all niggas is whack.
I'll challenge that a little bit because say our intention is to build this person up. You like wearing the wigs and weaves and lashes and all that other stuff. And some of that is an aspect of self-hatred. And I can build that up and empower you to understand the importance of not needing those things. Right? Self-hatred. I'm going to help empower you, help you understand, help you learn more about yourself. It's the same situation.
Really cool.
Over here.
Is it?
You don't love yourself.
I think
you don't want to identify with it. You don't love yourself. You don't want to identify with it. I have to help you be more empowered and understand who you really are as well as I have to do the same thing. over here. One's just more of a comfortable approach for us. Now, I'm not saying this because we got to advocate on going on like a Save the Coons crusade. I'm not saying we got to do all that. I'm really just playing devil's advocate to present different perspectives of how we have a bias to how we approach our own people. And we have to be able to get rid of that bias in order to uplift our community, not to overextend yourself.
See, yeah, because I agree with your, like what you, even especially the last thing you just said, they both are presenting in ways that like we're supposed to help them. I think the issue comes into even in the field, I can't, like we've said on the show before, like even in the therapy space, I cannot fix your problems for you. I am a tool. Like I can teach you,
Right.
I can teach you how to fight all day, but at the end of the day, you have to get in that ring with yourself and fight. I feel like it's a different type of thing to teach someone, like, you watch any, I don't know, man, you watch a kung fu thing, you watch you play a game or whatever. It's a difference between if you're the dude training, if you play Street Fighter, it makes more sense to train Ryu as opposed to training Akuma.
Mm-hmm.
Ryu is the person who can take whatever the issues are and turn it into a positive fighting style and become the hero of the game. Regardless of how much you taught Akuma, he becomes the villain. And the issue I feel like with, maybe the coon side of life is it's not a lack of, sometimes I feel like the nigga is a lack of knowledge. Coons know a lot and they choose to be in opposition to us. So the work is not just like, I don't want to work hard. It's like, I'm fighting an enemy, as opposed to all the work over here is a build. The work over here is a tear down to a hopeful build. And shit, even in the tear down, you might fuck around and fuck me up. And now we have no building. That is the thought that makes me think twice about a coon than I would about like.
So it's easier to help them build. This is going to be a 2-step process, but they have more ability. You understand this and that, and you willingly chose that. So possibly if I tear this down over here, I don't have to rebuild it because you have the capacity to rebuild it yourself.
And what
or
is
like our intention.
But does the nigga not have like lack of knowledge? I don't know if the lack of knowledge means lack of capacity. They might have the same capacity. They just went to 2 different classes. You just didn't get taught what this motherfucker got taught. Your capacity is the same.
That was
and what
my
is
point.
the thing?
They're the same person. It just looks different.
Well, I think as Black people, yeah. But I think what is I don't want to say it's a proverb or something, but it's easier to like raise a child than it is to like change the mind of a man or something like that. Because when I'm thinking of like the other side,
I forget how it goes.
But but it's something to that extent. Like the other side, I'm naturally thinking of a younger person, not necessarily a child, right? But like even if it's just younger in thought, and I think maybe it's a challenge to like, well, why do we view the coon as the more X, Y, and Z? Because the coon very much so could be that person. I think it's just a thing, and then also, I think I personally can be more triggered by a coon than I can by a nigga. Well, obviously, because I think I'm
mostly
around more.
It's going to be a tougher road.
Yeah, and I think that, but it's still, do I have a heart for them? Because yeah, they're Black. They're a part of us. Would I hope that what I'm doing or what we're doing in the conversations that we're having could change their mind? Yeah. Am I really going to put in that effort to do it? I don't know.
I think the effort also, as you're saying, the effort to change them would be the same effort, but how that effort is presented, I feel like also poses a different obstacle. Because to simply build, I'm going to give you all the effort, but we would be familiar in the realm of to break you down, to build you back up. The coon, I feel like you run the risk of, in the process of breaking them down, if they're identifying with the coonness, I'd end up, you could save 10 over here to get 5 coons. You might have to really slay 15.
Right.
I'm gonna really have to lay y'all down because I have to break you down to such a point to dismantle all this shit. And so it's a hope that person can deal with it. I think that's also a barrier of like like I said, the effort on our part is the same, but the method of I'm only pouring into you. I have to tear the coon down.
Right.
And in tearing of that, that's like me, if somebody woke up and said, hey man, like, I don't know, man, like the color blue is not the color blue. My mind is broke.
Right.
So I feel like that is also like a worry, I guess, or on that side is like, I'm working on you, but in my working on you, I'm ending you in the process, and there's nothing that says that you'll come back from that.
I'll say, what if we change the approach though? So we've talked about deconstructing and building and changing and all these other things. What if that's not our intention at all? Like, I'm not looking to change you. I'm not looking to build you or anything. I just want to inform you and you do with it what you will, letting people be who they are in this space.
Mm-hmm.
I'm providing the information to you both, and I'm going to let you figure it out for yourself. I don't have to be the one to try and change you or rebuild you, because at the end of the day, for both perspectives or both sets of people, we're assuming that they're willing to accept what we're bringing. I can try to rebuild you up and empower you all I want to, but if that's not what you want, then it's for naught. So I have to allow you to just be. Here's what you need. Here's the information that I think would be helpful to you, and there it is.
Oh, okay, well then I might have took this. If the idea is we just informed them, then fuck yeah, flood them both in information. I kind of took it as the idea is to try to adjust them both and
reframing, like we do in therapy.
Yeah,
we reframe, but sometimes in order to get somebody to be reframed, I'm not telling you. It's just like, hey, you know, this is a perspective over here, right? And you know, this is a perspective over here. And you said this, and oddly enough, this connects to that and connects to that. But, you know, I'm just pointing that out for you. You do with that what you will. And then that creates a new perspective for them. But our intention isn't to, they come to therapy and I want to change you. The intention is to like help you see the entire picture as opposed to just a corner of it.
And I think there's certain people for certain things. And there are people who are effective in getting the coon to X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And then there are people who are effective in getting, you know, niggas. And then also all of us in between, because even like you said, it's two extremes, but there's still so much work, whether it be the coon side of whatever or the nigga side of us that are in the middle.
Right.
And the dismantling of that. So I think it's like,
sometimes you just have to let it be. And I used the Carlton reference earlier because when you look at the dynamic of, say, Bel Air or Fresh Prince, whatever, Carlton could be considered a coon in some respects, but it's Will that helps him come a little bit more over to our side. So you take in one extreme and another extreme, they introduce each other, they influence each other in different ways, and they end up progressing forward, still being themselves, but also finding a common ground and a likeness for one another. It comes through trial and tribulation. Doesn't come easy, doesn't come immediately, but at some point they are willing to fight together as opposed to each other.
I think I think the Carlton thing helps because it makes the coon thing more of like a victim of circumstance as opposed to an active choice.
Which it is.
When I think coon, I think of
age also plays a factor too, though, in that.
Yeah, see, when I think like how that explained, I think Carlton, even if I'm making it whatever age he is, I'm looking at Carlton as somebody who is ignorant of certain perspectives and is very immersed in, say, the white side of life.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm thinking coon in this conversation, you're not ignorant of it. You make an active choice to say fuck the other side.
Right.
So in my mind, it's more of not me introducing a new perspective to somebody who's ignorant to it. It's like trying to convince an enemy that I'm not, that they're fighting for the wrong team.
Or think of it in regards to therapy. Why? For both, I have to figure out why. Whatever your presentation is, your surface level is, I have to figure out or help you understand the why. You are in opposition of us. You are a coon, but why? Yes, environment plays a role. Yes, circumstances play a role. Yes, experiences play a role. But what's the real why that made you gravitate towards this? There's something that influenced you or triggered you to go in this direction, because you don't see a ton of coons coming from Watts. You'll see stereotypical coons coming from certain environments, but what is the motivation? I know the conditioning from your environment plays a role in that, but what's your why for wanting to be over there? I want to say Candace Owens or whatever her name is.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about too.
Sometimes she can be like, hey, you know what? She got a point. Or sometimes like she broken clock be right twice a day, whatever. Like sometimes like as much as she may be super whatever on this side, there's aspects of her that understand how to advocate in a way for us that's beneficial or maybe uncomfortable for our norm. But she kind of got a point and we shouldn't dismiss her. And she can be completely wild in this other area. But what's your why for this? What puts you on this path to be in this political mindset that you're in and married, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. Like what put you on this path? What is your reasoning?
Well,
some of that isn't conscious.
I gotta have y'all back on the show
Again.
Word.
Yeah. Is that what?
I was saying, like,
normally bring you back.
No. I'm about to say that would be our third time.
First.
Oh yeah, this is mine. Yeah.
Well, is that too many times?
I'm down to come wherever.
Thank you. Whatever.
3 strikes, man. You be approaching. You got one more. You got one more in. You better make it. No, I'm just making.
I know. But thank y'all. We didn't talk about Van Lathan, so we got to come back and talk about it because I really wanted to have that conversation.
Oh shit!
I'm about to say by the time we talk about Van Lathan, the movie be out.
Yeah.
No.
I stand with his point of view though.
Yeah, but no, we'll maybe soon we'll have you guys come back if I can get you guys on a Friday. But thank you. Instagrams. When is your show? I know when your show is, but
Tuesdays 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time PST. Just a Dope Ass Podcast on literally everything. It'll be Just a Dope Ass Podcast on YouTube. We have the reinventing episodes on there. So yeah, Just a Dope Ass Podcast on all social platforms. I think it was Just a Dope Ass Pod on the Twitter.
You guys be tweeting?
We try. Like it's like
we do a little tweeting.
He does more. Like I'll have like modes. If you catch me like 1 hour on a Tuesday in the middle of the month, I'm like, yeah, and then I'll forget.
Are you checking Twitter?
I was about to check and I realized what time it was. Like, I got a session in a minute.
Oh yeah. The Chat Awesome is the personal one. It's honestly the same chaos, but if you want to come fuck with your boy,
yeah, just
thank you.
Pod for Twitter. But
yeah.
Thank y'all so much for being here. It's a good conversation.
Thanks for having us.
You guys will be back soon.
Bars.
But yeah. All right. Every Friday, 3:30 to 5. Here, the Good News Network. All right. Catch y'all later.
Without the power of God behind everything I do, I really am completely inadequate.
I'm helping the culture. These guys are part of us as well. You know, these guys are our cousin. I'm helping the culture. I'm pushing the culture forward in another way.
Hey, black child, be what you can be, learn what you must learn, do what you can do, and tomorrow.
What do you do after you read?